Well, good morning. It's Mornings with James. Glad to have you along for the ride this morning. Some interesting things going on, and of course, we can be a little bit topical with this, but let's find some solutions. First and foremost, city council meeting. Lots of interesting things being said, and of course, talking about the needle debris and things like that. I get the feeling a lot of people are missing the point here. For years. Lethbridge had a very conservative approach to the indigenous population, the problems, red rage, everything from the boarding school issues, stuff like that. We were so conservative, we just kind of turned a blind eye to it. We didn't really do much. Meanwhile, in the background, there were organizations working to help people out. As Shannon Phillips, our MLA for Lethbridge West, mentioned last week, back in the 80s, because of the AIDS epidemic, needles were available from any pharmacy. Arches has been handing out needles for over 10 years. Okay? So I want you to keep that in mind. The supervised consumption site, and to correct Mark Campbell, our city councillor, it's not a safe consumption site, it's a supervised consumption site because, let's face it, any type of consumption like that, whether you're huffing, inhaling, or injecting, it's not really safe, right? Supervised consumption sites have been proven to be effective in helping to break the cycle, okay? Counseling is available, things like that. And with the cost of actually, say for example, dealing with somebody with AIDS, it costs about $1 million for health services to help somebody who is struggling with AIDS. If you can provide clean needles and prevent that spread of AIDS and other bloodborne infections like that, and diseases like that, then you're saving money. One of the issues that has come up with the safe consumption site or the supervised consumption site is that it has localized everything. So all the things that we were not aware of before, we've now become more aware of. All the things that we were able to turn a blind eye to before are now glaringly obvious. We need the supervised consumption site. There are no simple answers. And yes, we are, as John Davies has so kindly posted on Facebook, and you're right, the Lethbridge situation is way out of control, okay? Considering the number of people, the indigenous population we have here, and the fact that the supervised consumption site is so busy. Yes, there is a crisis. We're not going to arrest our way out of it. What we can do is find a way to make a difference. Now, what does that difference mean? Does that mean volunteering? I don't know. What do you feel like doing about it? Does that mean being more vigilant? So we talk about, say for example, John was talking about the prostitution issue. We see that all the time. What do you do about it? When people crack down on these things, what ends up happening? Generally, the prostitution just moves down a couple of blocks. Doesn't solve the problem. One of the only ways you can solve the problem is through connection. And I know I've mentioned this before, and I mentioned it over and over again. And if you're tired of hearing it, maybe it's because we're just not doing enough. We turned a blind eye to the homeless population in some respects for a number of years. And now it's literally come back to bite us in the ass. Does complaining about it help? Does creating awareness about it help? Yes, creating awareness about it helps. What do we do for the businesses in the area of the safe consumption site? Supervised consumption site. See, now even I have issues making sure that I'm calling it a supervised consumption site. Let's look at some things and let's treat them as this new reality. First and foremost, we need a supervised consumption site. People who are addicts need access to clean needles because all of those people, they do not live in a vacuum. One of the other announcers on Jess FM was toting some stats saying that 70% of the users, the drug addicts, using the supervised consumption site have hepatitis C. Now, I don't know if that's truth. And it makes sense, though. If that really is the case, then there's a bigger issue. Because each one of those people, they are not just a street person, a homeless person, a First Nations or Indigenous person. They are somebody's brother, sister, mother, father, daughter, son. They are somebody's friend. And if they've got it, they don't live in a vacuum. It's possible for you to have it too. Now, I want you to think of this. Say, for example, there's a person who is using and they manage to go through a treatment program, maybe because they become inspired through the supervised consumption site. They get counseling and it makes a change in their life. They have Hep C. They get back on a normal life and they end up connecting with somebody in your life. Okay? And there's unprotected sex involved. All of a sudden, now that person in your life has it, and maybe somehow through the use of a razor, a toothbrush, something along those lines, even just helping that person out, cross-contamination of blood, something along those lines, you end up getting it. It's a very small world. We can push back and we can push people away all we want. It's not solving the problem. By embracing and connecting and then stopping and educating the youth of today so that they stop doing it. You see, part of the problem is that when we push people away, when we sit on our lofty perches and talk about how bad the situation is, we have to consider the fact that maybe we've had a hand in creating it. Maybe for so many years we looked at us and them to the point where it was always them and we just turned away in disgust. Now, that whole situation has just gotten bigger and bigger. Maybe we need to be aware of the fact that the harshness of the drugs that are being pushed on people, the drug culture that the medical community has created, maybe that has a role in it as well. Maybe chronic pain conditions and suffering, emotional and physical, play a role in it, and maybe we're not dealing with that. Now, these are not going to solve the issues right away. And as Minister Shannon Phillips said, we're not going to arrest our way out of it. How can we make a change? I believe we can make a change through connection. I believe that somehow we have got to find a way to reach out, to connect, and to create an awareness that we're all in this together. The needles, the contamination. We need to be more vigilant. We need to connect more. We need to reach out and share more. And we need to find a way to make ourselves, our friends, and our community as healthy as possible. Now, I want you to keep this in mind, okay? We talk about addiction, and we talk about addiction in the sense that street people shooting up, okay, or the homeless or drug addicts shooting up. And by the way, once again, that is somebody's son, daughter, mother, sister, brother, cousin, friend. I've known quite a few people who have fallen down and have not been able to get back up again. It's ruined lives. And by the way, it's not just defined by the color of your skin. It happens to white people all the time. I want you to think about this. There are those of us who have that natural tendency towards addiction, and everybody's going to find their own vice. If your addiction is alcohol, if it's cigarettes, if it's smoking pot, if it's heroin, if it's meth, whatever, that's still the nature of addiction. You're running, hiding, masking. And in southern Alberta, we are well known and maybe I'm speaking out of turn with this, for pushing people away and for separating the haves from the haves not, from the have-nots. It's not something that we should be proud of, but we also had a hand in creating this situation. The supervised consumption site is a necessity. It is something that saves lives. It is a place that saves lives. Making death threats to people who work there solves no problems whatsoever. They are just providing a service. Okay? You want to make death threats against them? Let me make an outrageous claim. If you look at companies that sell products with high fructose corn syrup, for example, they're guilty of causing a diabetes epidemic. They are guilty of putting a product out there and convincing people that it's a good thing to drink it. We tolerate that, yet type 2 diabetes, the rate of it is skyrocketing, right? We tolerate that. People work there. We don't make death threats against them. Yet this one blatant situation, and I know you're going to chastise me for saying this, but they're kind of the same thing. If we don't take control of our health, if we don't have a more active role in our community, if we aren't vigilant, if we are not part of the solution, and part of a solution involves action, might as well just be part of the problem. Okay? Think about it this way. For many, many years, I remember people saying, Lethbridge is great, blah, 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 blah. And they would say, look at those homeless people. They should get up and get a job. Well, you know what? That's just ignorant. Most of those homeless people are homeless for a couple of reasons. Mental illness. They're homeless because they learned a pattern of behavior, maybe an addictive pattern of behavior, from their mom, from their dad, or maybe they just fell through the cracks. We didn't give them a hand up. We tried to give them handouts. And throwing money at the situation doesn't help. I heard a story the other day about a gentleman, a First Nations Indigenous person, who got a settlement from the government, got a huge amount of money for abuse suffered through the boarding schools and through foster care. And he disappeared for about a year. Then he came back after receiving this large sum of money. He was right back where he started from, only a little bit worse off, because that money afforded him the opportunity to develop a really bad drug habit. So, blindly throwing money around doesn't help. Putting money towards causes that have structure and have a good intent, that does help. For my friends like John Davies, I appreciate your posts and I appreciate your passion. Keep sharing. Because you know what? Your stats, they are correct and they're making a difference. We need to know more about the situation. We need to know how special and how critical the situation in Lethbridge is. Because I tell you what, the supervised consumption site didn't create this situation. Arches did not create this situation. The situation existed before. If anything, we can be thankful to Arches and the supervised consumption site because it's made us blatantly aware of the fact that we have fallen down and that we have let our community down, that we have not done enough. So let's start doing enough. Now, I don't know what the answer is. I do know that anytime we can get together with groups like, say, for example, McMahon, Arches, Woods Homes, anytime we can get together with organizations that are on the front line and we can step up and we can reach out and we can make people feel like they matter. Now, I want you to think of this. Even with your kids and your family members, we see what happens with them when they fall through the cracks or they feel like they don't matter. We can see how quickly things start to kind of fall apart. We can see them using drugs. We can see them turning to cigarettes, smoking. We can see them using alcohol at a young age. We see all of that. And we claim to be good people. And I know we're doing our best. Now imagine if you're a marginalized group and your self-esteem is shot. You just don't feel like you matter. You don't feel like you can make a difference. Imagine how much that changes everything. When people know that they matter, that's where the change happens. Do your best to put aside your hatred. Do your best to put aside your anger. And do your best to realize that we are all in this together. Community. We're all in this together. And the caliber, the quality of our community is going to be judged by the people that are suffering the most. So what do we want to do about it? What do you want to do about it? We've got some great information out there now. The truth is coming to light. Our community has fallen down in certain areas. It's time to make a difference. It's time to put the right people in the right position to make change happen. Hatred, anger, death threats, they do not solve the problem. They create more of a problem. Find a way to connect. Find a way to help out. I understand from talking with certain people that the Shelter Me Party in the Park, not quite as busy as it was last year, and yet the time and the need for that awareness and for fundraising events like that is even more dire. We need to connect. We need to help out. Share the message. Connect. Remember, we're stronger as a community than as a bunch of individuals. When you're going on a rant and on a tirade, that's an individual thing. When you connect with people and you share a voice and you have a solution of some kind that is sustainable and productive, that makes a difference. So let's get connected. Remember, we're stronger as a community than as a bunch of individuals. And when we let people know that they matter and we can reach out and connect and share, everything's going to change. And it's going to be a slow process of change. Like I said, I don't have all the answers. I know there are some people out there who are very, very passionate about it. There are many people that I know that are working behind the scenes to make a difference. And my proverbial hat's off to those people. Keep sharing, let's find some answers, and let's connect. I'll be chatting with you in just a bit. Until then, share this message. See how we can make a difference. And by all means, on this Wednesday, stay inspired. We'll chat soon.